Hi, my name is Miranda Fisher, and today I will be presenting my dissertation prospectus. The anticipated title of my dissertation is The Examination of Grit Amongst Female City Managers and Breaking Through Occupational Barriers. According to a study completed by the International City and County Management Association's Task Force on Women in the Profession, in 2014, only 14.4% of city managers were women, and that number continues to remain relatively stagnant today. Due to this low percentage, city management is considered to be a male-dominated occupation, and this type of occupational segregation means that women need to work that much harder to attain their career goals and combat barriers. The purpose of this study is to describe how grit theory, which is the passion and perseverance for long-term goals, assists women in breaking through barriers to attain the highest non-elected municipal government leadership position. Understanding what motivates women to break through occupational barriers will be vital in addressing issues related to occupational segregation within the public sector and can help motivate and inspire future generations of women to pursue a career as a city manager and be successful in doing so. The research questions I intend to use for this dissertation are: what are female city managers' motivational triggers that provide them with the grit to pursue career advancements? And what impact does grit have on women's success in the city manager role? Angela Duckworth is the primary theorist behind grit theory, which focuses on how grit can help a person succeed in life. By interviewing women who have been able to break through barriers, I will seek to describe through grit theory how these women's tendency to sustain interest in and effort towards very long-term goals, and how they employed self-control to regulate impulses in the presence of momentarily gratifying temptations, aided them in attaining the city manager role. Specifically, I will seek to describe women's experiences related to the characteristics of grit theory, which include courage, conscientiousness, long-term goals and endurance, resilience, and excellence versus perfection. The literature that will be reviewed for this dissertation focuses on the following topics: motivational and grit theory. Theorists such as Abraham Maslow, Frederick Herzberg, David McClelland, and Victor Vroom spent years studying what motivates people to succeed in life and their respective careers. While each theorist took a different approach, they all sought to determine what motivates a person to act a certain way. These theorists created the groundwork from which grit theory emerged. In terms of gender leadership characteristics, researchers have argued that men and women lead differently, and that their gender plays a large role in what leadership characteristics are exhibited. Representative bureaucracy is a pillar of public administration and consists of both active and passive representation. Passive representation occurs when representatives demographically mirror their constituency. Active representation, on the other hand, takes place when representatives make decisions which directly impact the demographic in which they identify with. Occupational segregation occurs when most of a vocational field is one demographic. For example, an occupation would be considered male-dominated if at least 75% of the total workforce is male, and/or where males occupy more than 85% of available mid to upper-level management positions. With regards to female career progression, many women must overcome occupational barriers to advance through leadership ranks, and their successes and failures are important to evaluate when understanding their career progression experiences. And lastly, the female city manager experience. Through phenomenological reflection, many researchers have sought to understand the lived experiences of the female city manager by having them share their thoughts, feelings, reflections, and stories. For decades, the United States workforce has been inundated with occupational segregation, where there's an overrepresentation or underrepresentation of one gender in a specific vocational field. To understand how some women have overcome occupational barriers, it is essential to understand some of the factors that led to occupational segregation. Sex and gender differences is one example. Sex role socialization outlines expectations regarding how each gender is supposed to act and the biological differences between men and women. Organizational discrimination identifies that occupational segregation is an issue perpetuated by the organization itself and is likely embedded within the culture. Systematic barriers exist under dual labor market theory, where jobs are broken into primary and secondary categories. Primary jobs include professional, managerial, and technical jobs, while secondary jobs include clerical roles or sales. Glass ceiling refers to artificial barriers based on attitudinal or organizational bias that prevents qualified individuals from advancing upward in their organization into management level positions. Glass walls, on the other hand, refers to institutional barriers that isolate some employees, typically women or minorities, into jobs that don't lead to executive advancements within the organization. And patriarchy is a psychic prison in that it produces and reproduces organizational structures that give dominance to males and traditional male values. In order to understand grit theory, we must first examine motivational theories. Motivational theory can first be tied back to Abraham Maslow, who developed a model that identified human needs. Maslow argued that as individuals' basic needs are met, they become motivated to reach the higher levels of the hierarchy, ending in self-actualization, where the person realizes their potentialities for continued self-development and the desire to become more and more of what one is and what one is capable of becoming. Frederick Herzberg developed a two-factor theory to explain why employees are satisfied or dissatisfied at work. Herzberg identified that there are two components to job satisfaction: hygiene and motivation. Hygiene issues do not motivate employees, but can help to address dissatisfaction, such as working conditions, policies and procedures, and pay. Herzberg explained that what motivates employees are the things that fulfill individuals' needs for meaning and personal growth, such as recognition, upward mobility, and the overall work itself. David McLellan outlined in his studies that people are motivated by three factors: power, affiliation, and achievement. McLellan explained that there are higher achievers and lower achievers, and what category a person falls into is directly related to how they approach each one of those. Victor Vroom also identified three factors that impact motivation, but he identified those as valiance, expectancy, and instrumentality. Specifically, Vroom says that an individual's motivation is affected by how much they value any reward associated with an action, how much they believe that putting effort into something will be able to generate good results, and how much they believe that generating good results will result in a reward. Grit theory is one of the newest motivational theories, and it studies why some people fail and some succeed. Angela Duckworth founded grit theory, and in her analysis, she outlined that grit is the combination of talent and achievement. Duckworth explains, though, that skill, talent, effort, and achievement are only possible if there is interest, practice, passion, and hope, all of which are components of grit. I plan to end the literature review section with an overview of the benefits of having women in the city manager role. As previously outlined in this presentation, the first is representative bureaucracy, where through gender matching, a municipality can improve the quality of services provided. With regards to gender leadership characteristics, women are considered to be more emotionally intelligent than men, and are also more likely to be nurturing, fiscally stable, and committed to the organization. To ensure there are equal opportunity policies, procedures, and laws, municipalities must implement training and HR practices in order to ensure women have equal opportunities to pursue leadership roles. And lastly, as women enter into the city management role, they're in a position where they can inspire more women to pursue leadership positions and also share ways in which they can be successful in doing so. A phenomenological research design will be used for the study, which will help to build an understanding of the experience of women working in the city manager role. Using the female experience lens, the dissertation will seek to explain how grit theory aided in their success in obtaining and maintaining the city manager role. One-on-one interviews will be conducted where open-ended, non-leading questions will be asked, allowing the participant to freely respond and guide the conversation, rather than the researcher controlling the narrative. I will also review published reports on the lack of female representation in the city manager role. To narrow down the sample size, I will focus specifically on Colorado, where there are 137 female city managers. I will interview 51%, which is roughly 70 female city managers, in order to reach a point of saturation. I will also ensure that they have worked in the field for 7 years in order to be sure they have enough experience to provide insight into the role. To assess the themes that emerge from the interviews, coding will be required. A code book will be developed which outlines themes based on a completed literature review and theoretical frameworks. The code book will include operational definitions, which can be adjusted based on the information obtained. And in the end, a program will be used to cross-tabulate the codes and data obtained from the interviews. A series of limitations will likely emerge throughout the study, mainly being sample and generalizability. Since I'm only focusing on Colorado, the results are not generalizable. And also, the length of time a participant has served as a city manager will also serve as a limitation, and that their experience with regards to career progression will be vastly different. I am passionate about this topic for my dissertation because ensuring that women are a part of decision making is incredibly important to me. And I hope that my study will shed light on how women overcome barriers to be successful female city managers. Thank you so much for watching my presentation.